It was the summer of 1995. In the heart of Oregon's Cascade Mountains, 5 best friends aged between 12 and 15 set out on a weekend camping trip that was supposed to mark the end of their school year and the beginning of endless summer memories. The sun was shining, birds chirped overhead, and the boys' laughter echoed through the trees. They had packed snacks, fishing rods, and their parents' old camcorder ready to record every moment of their adventure. But by Monday morning, they were gone. Not a single child returned home. Their tents were discovered at the edge of Mirror Lake, zipped shut from the inside. Their backpacks were still inside, untouched. A half-cooked hot dog was found on a skewer near the fire pit, and the camcorder was missing. No signs of a struggle. No footprints. No screams heard by nearby campers. It was like they had vanished into thin air. For years, the case haunted the entire region. Parents were accused. A few locals were arrested, questioned, and released. Theories flooded the town, from serial killers to mountain cults to wild animal attacks. Even believed the boys had planned their own disappearance. But no trace of the 5 boys or their belongings was ever found, until now. 3 decades later, during a record-setting drought. Mirror Lake's water levels dropped, drastically revealing something horrifying buried beneath the still surface. A rusty, decaying van was found near the lake bed, upside down and barely intact. Inside were skeletons, a camcorder, and what looked like 5 backpacks. The van had been there the whole time, just feet beneath the surface. As forensic teams rushed in and the FBI reopened the case, what they uncovered on that old camcorder turned the entire investigation on its head and revealed a chilling truth that no one was prepared for. You won't believe what really happened to those 5 boys. Before we reveal the shocking truth hidden inside that camcorder, don't forget to subscribe to Unsolved Chronicles for more emotional, mysterious, and true story-inspired tales from across America. Your support helps us bring more untold stories to life. Welcome to Unsolved Chronicles, where every story is a journey through emotion, mystery, and truth. Today's episode unravels a haunting disappearance that shook an entire community and the devastating truth that surfaced 3 decades later. This is the story of the 5 boys from Cascade County, in the lake that held their secret for 30 long years. Zachary was the leader of the group, the tallest, the fastest, and the one who always had a plan. He loved drawing maps and pretending they were explorers discovering hidden lands. His dad was a park ranger, so he knew the woods better than anyone. Everyone trusted Zach to keep them safe. Miguel was the heart of the group. He's quiet, kind, and always the first to notice when someone was feeling down. He carried a small notebook where he wrote poetry and jokes. His mom worked long hours, so the boys had become his second family. They often said Miguel was the glue that kept them all close. Chris was the wild one. He had a laugh that echoed through the trees and a million ideas that often got them into trouble, but also made every day an adventure. He believed life was too short to sit still. Climbing trees, jumping off rocks, chasing frogs, he did it all without fear. His energy was contagious. Tyler was the curious one, always asking questions, always carrying a flashlight even during the day. He loved ghost stories and documentaries. If something strange happened, Tyler would be the first to investigate. His backpack was always full of snacks, batteries, and a little magnifying glass. And then there was Devin, the youngest, just 12 years old, but determined to keep up with the older boys. They treated him like a little brother, teasing him gently, but always watching out for him. Devin had just gotten his first pair of glasses and felt proud wearing them, thinking they made him look smarter. The 5 of them were more than friends. They were a unit. Each one different, but perfectly matched. They met at school, played in the same baseball team, and every summer, they promised each other one big adventure. That year, their hearts were set on Mirror Lake. It was supposed to be their greatest trip yet, a weekend of fishing, stories by the fire, and sleeping under the stars. No one knew that this would be their final adventure together, and that the laughter shared between them would soon turn into a haunting silence. It was a bright Saturday morning in late June, when the boys packed up their bags and met near Zachary's front yard. The sun was out, the sky was clear, and the smell of summer was in the air. They loaded up their backpacks with sleeping bags, sandwiches, marshmallows, and Miguel's old camcorder. Each one of them was smiling ear to ear. Their parents stood on the sidewalk, giving last-minute advice and hugs. "Don't go too far from the lake. Stick together. Call us if anything feels wrong." But the boys were too excited to listen properly. They waved, shouted by, and rode off on their bikes, the sound of tires crunching gravel fading into the distance. As they reached the trail leading to Mirror Lake, the mood became even more joyful. Birds chirped in the trees, and rays of sunlight slipped through the leaves above. They sang songs, raced their bikes, and took turns pretending they were on a survival show. Chris did most of the talking, pretending he was a TV host. The others laughed so hard they had to stop and catch their breath. By the time they reached the lake, it was almost afternoon. The water sparkled like glass, calm and still. It was perfect. They set up 2 tents right at the edge, close enough to hear the gentle splashing of the water. Miguel filmed a moment's act pretending to pitch a tent like a pro. Devin struggling to carry the firewood, Tyler giving a fake news report on their arrival. As night fell, they lit a campfire and roasted hot dogs. They shared stories, some funny, some spooky. Tyler, as always, told the scariest one. The flames danced in their eyes as they sat close together, wrapped in blankets, their laughter echoing softly across the lake. That was the last sound anyone ever heard from them. The next morning, silence. No calls home, no voices. When the Rangers found the campsite 2 days later, it looked untouched, like time had frozen. The tents were zipped shut from the inside. Food was left half-eaten. A marshmallow stick was still lying near the fire pit. Everything was there, except the boys. It was as if the forest had swallowed them whole. 2 days after the boys left, when none of them came home or called, their parents began to worry. At first, they told themselves it was just kids losing track of time, too caught up in the fun. But by nightfall, that worry turned into fear. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. Early the next morning, search teams were sent to Mirror Lake. Parents, police officers, volunteers all rushed into the woods, calling the boys' names, hoping to hear a response. The forest stayed quiet. There were no sounds, no footprints, no voices. Just trees standing tall and still, like they were keeping a secret. Then, near the edge of the lake, they found the campsite. 2 tents neatly set up, backpacks stacked inside, fishing rods still placed by the water, few open bags of chips, untouched. The fire pit had gray ashes, and beside it, 1 hot dog still stuck on a wooden stick, half-cooked, left behind as if someone had walked away mid-bite. Inside the tents, sleeping bags were rolled up, not slept in. Clothes and flashlights were right where the boys had placed them. There were no signs of a struggle. No blood, no torn fabric, no drag marks. It didn't look like a crime scene. It looked like they had just ... vanished. Even more disturbing, everything was zipped shut from the inside, like they had crawled in and never come back out. The Rangers and officers stood there in disbelief. How could 5 boys disappear without leaving a single sign behind? Not a scream, not a footprint, not even a broken branch. The forest, the lake, the sky, everything looked exactly the same. Peaceful. Calm. But underneath that calm, there was something deeply unsettling. Miguel's camcorder was missing. Mother remembered he took it everywhere. But it wasn't in his backpack. It wasn't anywhere. That tiny detail began to eat at everyone. But he caught something on camera, something the boys weren't supposed to see. As the sun began to set over Mirror Lake, casting golden light over the tents and trees, the silence became unbearable. Parents stood frozen, staring at the empty space where their children should have been. Some cried, some whispered their names. Others just stood in shock, unable to accept what they were seeing. It felt like the forest was holding its breath, and the lake was hiding something deep. Within hours of finding the campsite, the area was surrounded by police, detectives, and rescue teams. Yellow tape was stretched between trees, and officers began asking questions to anyone who had been near Mirror Lake that weekend. But the answers were few and confusing. No one had seen or heard anything unusual. Nearby campers said they hadn't noticed any screams, no strange cars, no signs of danger. The forest was quiet, too quiet, and that made it worse. Helicopters flew above the treetops, scanning from the sky. Divers searched the lake for days. They went deep into the cold, dark water, but found nothing. No clothes, no bags, no sign of the boys or the missing camcorder. Sniffer dogs were brought in. They picked up a scent near the lake's edge, but it suddenly stopped, just ended. Like the trail had disappeared into thin air. The parents, heartbroken and desperate, pleaded with the media for help. Their faces appeared on every TV screen in Oregon. Photos of the 5 boys were pinned on gas stations, schools, and grocery stores. People across the state were told to keep their eyes open. Tips began pouring in. Some claimed to have seen a van speeding away that weekend. Others said they heard crying deep in the forest. But every lead led to a dead end. The town of Cascade County fell into a dark cloud of fear. Parents stopped letting their kids outside. Schools held safety meetings. No one trusted anyone anymore. Some blamed the rangers for not watching the lake closely. Others accused strangers or tourists. One man was arrested after a witness claimed he looked suspicious, but he was released days later. He had never even been near the campsite. Rumors spread fast. Some believed it was a wild animal attack, though no blood was found. Others whispered about a secret cult hiding in the woods. A few said maybe the boys ran away on purpose, but their parents swore they never would. As days turned into weeks, the investigation slowed. The police had no evidence, no suspects, and no answers. It was as if the boys had simply been erased. The silence from the forest was deafening, and the mystery had just begun. As the days passed without answers, people began to make their own. The newspapers couldn't get enough of the story. Every headline screamed something different. 5 boys taken. Monster in the woods. Did they run away? TV reporters camped near Mirror Lake, shoving microphones into the faces of crying parents, trying to get the next big scoop. It didn't take long for the wild theories to begin. Some believed a stranger had followed the boys into the woods. A few witnesses came forward claiming they saw a dark van parked along the highway near the trail. One woman said it was there late at night, lights off, engine running. Police never found that van. There was no license plate, no video, nothing solid to prove it existed. Others whispered about a dangerous animal like a bear or cougar that might attack the boys and drag them away. But experts quickly shut that down. There were no signs of blood, no torn tents, no animal tracks, and 5 boys, at once, didn't add up. Then came the darkest theory. Someone from town was responsible. Some accused the boys' own families. Anonymous callers told police to question the parents. Maybe one of them snapped, someone wrote online. A father was brought in for questioning, so was an uncle. Their names were cleared, but the damage was done. People looked at each other with suspicion. Friends stopped talking. Neighbors turned cold. There were even stranger ideas. One blogger claimed the boys had found something in the woods they weren't supposed to see, a secret military site, or maybe a hidden bunker. Another said it was aliens. One woman on a late-night radio show insisted Mirror Lake was cursed and the forest had taken the children as a sacrifice. Some people just wanted to believe anything that wasn't the truth, that 5 happy, healthy boys could vanish without a trace. The pressure on the police grew heavy. The FBI got involved. Hundreds of tips came in, but none led anywhere. The parents begged for people to stop spreading lies, but it was too late. The story had become bigger than the town, bigger than the case. It was now a mystery that the whole country watched, argued over, and feared. And still, there was no sign of the boys. As time passed, hope began to fade. The posters of the missing boys slowly disappeared from shop windows. The reporters stopped showing up. The search teams were called back. The police stopped returning every phone call. The case that had once shocked the entire country became quiet. The parents, however, never forgot. Zachary's father kept his room exactly the same. His baseball glove on the shelf, his drawing still pinned to the wall. Every night before bed, he would sit on his son's empty bed, whispering, "I'm still looking." His voice often broke, but he never missed a single night. Miguel's mom couldn't sleep without leaving the porch light on, even during storms. She believed deep down that if he found his way back, he'd see the light and know he was home. She lit candles every year on his birthday and placed them by the lake, whispering his favorite poem into the wind. Chris's parents separated. The pain became too heavy. His laughter once filled the house, but now the silence between the walls was unbearable. His little sister used to set a plate for him at dinner, hoping it might bring him back, but he never came. Tyler's family moved out of town. The questions, the stares, the rumors, it all became too much. But even in a new state, Tyler's mom kept his flashlight on a shelf, untouched. She couldn't throw it away. She just couldn't. And Devin's older brother, he never forgave himself. He was supposed to go with them that day, but stayed behind to hang out with friends. He lived with the guilt every single day, replaying the moment he told Devin, "You'll be fine without me." The town of Cascade County grew older. New children were born, new stories were told. But the wound left by those 5 boys never truly healed. Every summer when June came around, a strange stillness would fall over Mirror Lake. Some said the air felt heavier, some said the trees whispered. Each year, a few families still gathered at the lake. They lit candles, they prayed, they held each other. But with every passing year, their eyes showed the truth. Hope was slowly slipping away. And still, the forest said nothing. The lake kept its secret buried deep. In the summer of 2025, something strange happened in Oregon. The rain stopped. Month after month, the skies stayed dry. Rivers shrank. Grass turned yellow. And Mirror Lake, the place where the 5 boys had disappeared 30 years earlier, began to dry up for the first time in decades. At first, no one paid much attention. Lakes go low in the summer all the time. But by mid-July, the water had dropped so much that parts of the lake bed were starting to crack. Stones, tree branches, and old fishing gear began to appear from beneath the surface. Locals started walking along the dried edges, curious, taking photos and shaking their heads at how strange it looked.
Then someone saw it.
Go. A group of hikers had been walking along the far end of the lake when one of them noticed something metallic sticking out of the mud. At first, they thought it was just a big pipe. But as they got closer, their footsteps slowed. Their voices dropped to whispers. One woman gasped. A man stepped back, holding his hand over his mouth. It was a van, upside down, rusted, broken windows, covered in dirt and algae. Authorities were called immediately. Police arrived within the hour. The area was taped off. Drones flew overhead. Officers stood still, staring at the van like it was something out of a nightmare. They knew this wasn't just an old vehicle. This was something much bigger. Rescue teams worked through the night. Carefully, they pulled the van from the mud. Its tires were rotten, doors barely holding together. When they opened it, the silence was heavy until someone whispered, "There are bones inside." 5 sets of remains were found, seatbelts still fastened, clothes faded with time, and between the seats, a muddy, cracked camcorder. The parents were called, some collapsed to the ground. Others cried out in disbelief. For 3 decades, they had lived in pain, not knowing. Now they had an answer, but not peace. Their boys had been under that lake the entire time, so close, yet hidden in the dark. The lake had finally given them back. But one question still remained: how did the van get there? What was on that camcorder? The van was carefully taken to a secure lab near Portland. It was so rusted and fragile that even touching it felt risky. The forensics team wore white suits and gloves, moving slowly, treating the vehicle like a sacred piece of the past. Everyone knew this van could finally answer questions that had haunted families for 30 years. Inside the van, the air was thick. Though time had taken its toll, there were still 5 skeletons, each one in a seat. Each one still wearing bits of old clothing, a small blue hoodie, a faded pair of sneakers, broken pair of glasses. Those small details, they made it real. One by one, the remains were gently removed and examined. DNA tests were rushed. Within days, the results came back, confirmed what everyone feared. It was Zachary, it was Miguel, it was Chris, it was Tyler, and it was little Devin. The room went quiet when the lab received the call. Some workers stepped away, holding back tears. Others stood frozen, staring at the screen. These weren't just bones. These were children, sons, friends, lives stolen too soon. On the floor of the van, the team found more pieces. Backpacks still zipped, a pocket knife with initials carved into the handle, an old Polaroid photo of the boys near a campfire. Miguel's notebook was damaged, but with one page still readable. It said, "Best trip ever." And then, they found the camcorder. It was old and dirty, the lens cracked, battery long dead. But the tape inside was still there, Carefully, they removed it and sent it to a lab that specialized in damaged recordings. Technicians worked for hours to clean it. Everyone waited in silence, barely breathing. What would it show? The bodies told part of the story. 2 of the seatbelts were jammed. One of the rear doors had been damaged from the inside, as if someone tried to get out. There were signs of panic scratch marks on the roof, bent seat frames. The evidence was painful. The boys had been trapped, alive, and no one had heard them. The cause of death was listed as drowning, but the real cause was mystery. The answers were coming. But first, they had to press play. The tape from the camcorder was old, muddy, and fragile. No one knew if it would even play. But the technicians treated it like gold. They dried it slowly, cleaned the film gently, and carefully transferred it to digital. Everyone in the room held their breath as the screen lit up for the first time in 30 years. It started with laughter. The video opened with the boys setting up their campsite. Zachary was showing off how to pitch a tent, while Chris cracked jokes behind the camera. Devin waved at the lens, wearing his oversized glasses and giving a goofy smile. Miguel was sitting on a log, writing in his notebook. Tyler zoomed in on the lake, saying, "Day 1 of our Mirror Lake adventure." It was beautiful and heartbreaking. The next clip showed the boys eating marshmallows, throwing stones into the water, and playing a game of tag. You could hear them talking about staying up all night, telling ghost stories, and swimming in the morning. Nothing seemed wrong, nothing felt strange. But then, everything changed. Near the end of the tape, the footage became shaky. The camera was being held by someone running. The screen bounced up and down. Breathing could be heard fast, scared. In the background, headlights appeared in the trees. A vehicle, a van. The boys were shouting, "Who is that?" and turn off the light. The camera turned to Miguel's face. He looked terrified. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted something unclear. The boys screamed. The footage got blurry. The camera dropped to the ground, still recording. You could see feet moving. One of the boys fell. Someone picked up the camera again for a split second, but the video cut to black. Silence. Everyone watching the recovered footage sat still. No one said a word. It was like they had all been punched in the chest. The fear in the boys' voices, their panic. The unknown van, it was all real, raw, unfiltered. It didn't feel like a movie. It felt like a nightmare. Last frame of the video stayed on screen for several seconds. A close-up of Devin S.'s hand reaching for something, or someone. Then, the tape ended. But what it revealed was more than enough. This wasn't an accident. Someone had been out there with them, and finally investigators had a real clue. After watching the recovered footage, investigators worked day and night. They enhanced the video, zoomed into faces, checked the shape of the van, and matched the voice in the background to old recordings. Slowly, piece by piece, a shocking truth began to take shape, one that no one had expected. The voice yelling in the woods wasn't a stranger. It belonged to someone from the boys' own town. Someone who had been close to them. Someone who had helped search for them. Someone who stood next to the parents at candlelight vigils, crying with them. It was Devin's older brother, Nathan. When police brought him in for questioning, he looked calm at first. He had moved away years ago, started a new life, and was now working as a mechanic in another city. But when they played the footage and let him hear that voice, his voice's hands began to shake. At first, he denied everything, said he wasn't even in town that weekend. But records showed otherwise. His phone had pinged near Mirror Lake the night the boys disappeared. And when police checked an old photo from 1995, they noticed something strange. Nathan had owned a van that looked almost exactly like the one found in the lake. That was the final crack. Eventually, Nathan broke down and confessed. But his story was far darker than anyone imagined. He said he never meant to hurt them. He'd followed the boys to the lake, jealous and angry that Devin had chosen to camp with friends instead of spending time with him. Nathan had been struggling mentally, quietly battling thoughts he didn't understand. He claimed he just wanted to scare them, teach them a lesson. But when they ran from him, things spiraled out of control. He forced them into the van, thinking he'd drop them off later, let them walk home. But on the narrow road by the lake, he lost control. The van skidded, flipped, and slid down the muddy bank straight into the water. He escaped, but the boys didn't. And instead of calling for help, he ran. For 30 years, Nathan kept the secret. He lived with the guilt, hugged their parents, even helped post flyers, all while knowing the truth. When his confession ended, the room was silent. Even the officers couldn't hold back tears. It wasn't a monster, it wasn't a stranger, it was family. When the truth came out, the town of Cascade County went silent. People couldn't believe it. Nathan, Devin's brother? It's the same boy who used to help carry water bottles during the searches, who stood beside the parents crying during every memorial. It felt like a nightmare all over again, except this time, the pain cut even deeper. The parents were broken. Zachary's father collapsed when he heard the news. He had trusted Nathan like a son, had eaten dinner with him. And now to find out that his own child died because of Hemet shattered what was left of his heart. Miguel's mother locked herself in her house for days. She didn't speak to anyone, just sat in Miguel's room, holding the notebook he left behind. The same notebook that had once been filled with poems and jokes, now stained with tears. Chris's mom refused to believe it at first. No, she whispered over and over again. Not Nathan, not someone we knew, it's not someone we hugged. Tyler's father blamed himself. He remembered all the times he told Tyler to trust people, to believe the world was good. Now he felt like he had lied to his son and Devin's parents. They were caught in a storm of confusion. Their older son had caused this. One son lost in a lake. The other lost to guilt, crime, and prison. A family destroyed from both sides. A mother torn between grief and rage. A father who couldn't speak without shaking. The town changed too. Neighbors stopped talking. People looked at each other with quiet suspicion. The warmth that once filled Cascade County had disappeared. Schools held assemblies. Counselors were brought in. Old wounds reopened. The children who grew up hearing the story of the 5 missing boys now saw the truth, and it was far scarier than the mystery ever was. People visited Mirror Lake not just for peace anymore, but for answers. They stood at the water's edge, staring at the spot where the van had been found. Some prayed, some cried, some just stood in silence, not knowing what to feel. The lake had finally told its secret. But the cost of knowing the truth was heavy, for some too heavy to carry. The funerals were held just weeks after the truth came out. For the first time in 30 years, the parents had something to bury. They held each other tightly as 5 small caskets were lowered into the ground. Some placed letters inside. Others brought childhood photos, baseball caps, drawings, and little items that once meant the world. There were no words strong enough to comfort them, no apology big enough. But there was finally a goodbye. The town gathered, wearing black, standing shoulder to shoulder under gray skies. Even strangers cried. People who didn't know the boys still felt their loss. Because this wasn't just about 5 kids. It was about a childhood stolen, a town forever changed, and a secret that was buried far too long. A memorial was built near Mirror Lake, a smooth stone, with the boys' names carved side by side. Flowers were placed there daily, small toys, handwritten notes. People came from other towns, even other states, just to stand there and feel something. The parents said they were grateful to finally know the truth, but knowing the truth didn't erase the pain. It didn't bring back the birthdays, the hugs, the laughter around the dinner table. For some, it brought new pain they didn't know they still had left to feel. Nathan was sentenced to life in prison. But even that didn't bring full justice. Some said he deserved worse, others said he needed help. Devin's mother visited him once, just once. She left in tears and never spoke of what he said to her. Years passed, but the feeling around Mirror Lake never truly faded. Some said the air still felt heavy there. Few claimed they heard whispers at night. Not ghost stories, just echoes of 5 boys who were once full of life, dreaming of adventures, hoping to grow up. So was this closure maybe, for some? But for others, the story never really ends. Because the hardest part isn't losing someone, it's learning how to keep living with their absence. And sometimes, even when a mystery is solved, the sadness never goes away. It simply learns how to hide like the van beneath the water, waiting, quiet, forever part of the lake. And so, the story of the 5 boys who vanished in 1995 finally came to light. It was a story of friendship, of adventure, of laughter, and then of silence, loss, and a heartbreaking truth that stayed hidden beneath the water for 30 long years. We may now know what happened, but the pain, the memories, and the love these families carry will never disappear. Because some wounds don't heal, they become part of who we are. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to remember Zachary, Miguel, Chris, Tyler, and Devon, not as a case, not as a mystery, but as 5 young souls full of dreams who never got the chance to grow up. Thank you for watching Unsolved Chronicles. If you believe these stories deserve to be told, if you believe in truth, emotion, and justice, then please like, share, and subscribe. Every voice matters, every story counts. We'll be back soon with another journey into the unknown. Until then, stay safe. Never stop searching for the truth.